Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Hi.
hi.
Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
So I'm excited to talk to you all today. And I think to get started, I'm just going to read through a few of your bios to give people a sense of sort of who we all have here. And then I'll ask you guys to expand a little bit more because, there are only so many things you can glean from 5 sentences about someone. So
Okay.
first, let's go with Heather. Heather Chauvin has been named the next generation's thought leader in parenting and women's leadership. Her mission is to crack women open to their deepest potential and lead the life their soul craves. She reaches thousands of readers worldwide and leads innovative retreats and coaching programs that teach women to succeed in their most sacred work in parenting and business. Heather's the creator of the new and noteworthy podcast, Mom is in Control, and has been featured on the OWN Network, Huffington Post, TV outlets, and others. Through her Courageous Rewrite initiative, Heather has given voice to many humans who have courageously taken inspired action towards creating a life they're proud of. So Lise Cartwright. Lise is a best-selling author, blogger, and business coach, and a self-confessed shoe fanatic. Lise works with savvy blog and business owners who are looking to start and grow a side business by sharing her knowledge on self-publishing and email marketing. She has written and published over 23 books in the past 2 years and is set to increase that to over 30 in 2017. Lise can be regularly found at local cafes tapping away on her Mac, enjoying the sweet, delicious taste of a chai latte. She lives in New Zealand with her Aussie husband, surrounded by beautiful trees and clear blue skies. Susan P. Ascher is president and CEO of the Ascher Group, an award-winning national consulting firm, founder of the Sphere of Excellence in Communication and Course Connections. Susan's training and coaching programs have helped countless corporations and individuals raise the bar in communication, leadership development, teamwork, and client relations. She has coached individuals and teams for clients ranging from the Fortune 50 to emerging growth companies, as well as healthcare organizations, nonprofits, and numerous nationally ranked colleges and universities. A native of New Jersey and a graduate of Lehigh University, Susan is also a proud mother who cherishes time spent with her daughter. So we've got some really awesome, diverse backgrounds here. And, one thing in common that we're really going to be diving into is this whole idea of how you balance success in work and in life as a woman in business, essentially, and what that really means. And so I wanted to start with Lise. Lise, I would like for you to sort of take me back. Your story begins with basically an office job you hated and this realization that you wanted to make a change in your life. Can you sort of walk us through what happened and how you got out of that dark place into where you are now?
Sure. I was working in a not-for-profit in an admin-based role, and I'd kind of moved around in lots of different admin sort of base roles. But I got to this point, I was 28, 29, and I had a conversation with my boss, and I said to her, look, I want to know what is my career progression here. Like, what can I do next? I don't want to stay doing what I'm doing. I've been doing it for sort of 3+ years. And she looked me square in the eye and she said, Lise, but why would you want to move? You make my life so much easier. She said, you're so organized. You're great at what you do. Unless I leave, there's no sort of progression. And that really hit home to me. I was just like, OMG, like, this woman has just told me that I don't have any other option. And I didn't want to then just go and look for another job, like, because I'd done that. I'd been changing jobs sort of every 3 years. So I'd sort of get to a 3-year point where, you're really in the business, your job, what you're doing, and you get to a level where you're just like, okay, I want to try something different. So you go to a new job, you learn that, and the same process goes again. So for me, I was just like, I don't want to go through that process again. What am I going to do? Like, what can I do? So that sort of led me down the path of trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life, what I could do. At that point, I had no, I have a degree, but I wasn't using it. It wasn't anything related at all to what I was doing. And so I just sort of started looking online really for options, not having any kind of idea what that would be, and looking for someone to kind of direct and inspire me to do something, because I had got to the point where waking up on a Monday morning after having sort of, 2 days off from work, was making me feel sick to my stomach, where I was just like, I actually have to front up to work and pretend that I want to be here when, I really don't. And I'm not that type of person where I can kind of fake how I feel. I'm very much a heart on my sleeve type of person. So I was just like, I have to do something, something's got to give. It's one of my favorite movies. It's so true. So I was doing a lot of research, and thankfully came across this amazing program called Location Rebel. And the person that runs it is Sean Ogle, and he is amazing. Like, just one of the most honest and open people who just genuinely wants to help people. So I joined that in 2011, late 2011, and 10 months later, I quit my job. And boss cried. She was she's like, I can't believe you're doing this. But I was just like, she's lovely. I'm still, very good friends with her. We had a very open relationship. But that moment of sitting in the office with her and her just saying those sorts of things just really made me take a step back and go, wow, if I don't do something, this is never going to change.
Right. So this idea of, if I don't do something, this is never going to change. Susan, in your work coaching people, I bet a lot of people sort of have this feeling, but then they don't know where to start or how to sort of take the next step. How does coaching, or, in what ways does it sort of push them into that next step?
Well, yeah. And, it's interesting, ladies, because, people, I don't know what it's like, I'm sure it's very similar in Argentina and New Zealand. And I don't know, Heather, where are you again?
I'm in Ontario, Canada.
Okay. Ooh, we're such an international crowd.
Wow.
But, people in this country, they think nothing of hiring a trainer 3 times a week, $80 an hour. They think nothing of hiring someone to coach their son or daughter in soccer, hoping that they become the next, star or, global soccer star. And yet when it comes to understanding what they know and what they don't know, a lot of people, I guess they still view coaching, obviously not my clients, but I hear people say, well, what does a coach do for me? And how can a coach help me? So a coach can help you, A, realize the things that you don't know, B, help you become unstuck, be very objective about what it is that maybe you should be doing or shouldn't be doing or could be doing, and really helping to sort of redirect and hopefully raise the bar in where you are lacking. You didn't mention it, Claire. I'm not sure if you knew, I wrote 2 books, and the first book I wrote is called Dude, Seriously, It's Not All About You. That book is all about my view of modern manners and how they really have gone completely down the food chain, just in terms of how we treat, we're on this thing all day long. And really to differentiate ourselves and build communities, face to face, like you said, Claire, when you went to that retreat in Mexico for a week. Mm-hmm. So, and then the second book I wrote is Dude, Seriously, Get Your Ask in Gear. So my view in my 95-page book on what I view as modern leadership. So, and that's apart from, I hate using the word manners because it's so old fashioned, so archaic, but this book is really about the things that people have to overcome in executive coaching or solopreneurship coaching or whatever business development coaching that we're doing. So, I talk about analysis paralysis, and I talk about no being the new yes. And I'm sure, Heather, you're working with women on empowering them and, raising themselves in the world. And, so much of it is that we're being pulled in so many different directions. And again, it's not just women that I coach, but just people in general that suffer from these things. And then the whole concept of, that we are operating in this VUCA world, which is actually a military term, which comes from from the idea of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And every day we are working in that environment. So, it's a lot of fun when people let go and really see that we can be mindful to change people's behaviors. And again, we can't change the whole person, but what are some of the things that we can change that really are going to make if your life is better, then your business is going to be better. If your business is better, then your life is going to be better. It just, when people say, well, are you a life coach? No, but there's life coaching that goes into business coaching, because you may have to tell somebody, why are you staying overnight in the office and then going home for a nap? I have a client like this, and coming back at 10 o'clock in the morning. Do you think this is something that your employees aspire to? So am I answering your question? I mean,
yeah.
Of all, it's and so people look at it and go, what does a coach do? A coach just builds awareness and tries to manage and change not all of, but some of the behaviors that can really raise the bar, not only personally, but also professionally. And that's what I do.
So Heather, sort of this idea that, some of us have these blind spots or we're stuck. You work a lot with basically parents, right? To look at help evolving the way they live and work, right? What are some of sort of the stuck places you see that a lot of parents in our society these days are in that they want to get out of?
Oh, trying to live vicariously through their children.
Ooh.
But to back up, I love this conversation. I used to be a social worker. I worked as a therapist, and I left the field, and I actually had to leave the college as well, like the regulatory college, because they wouldn't allow me to function in a way that was productive towards my clients. I was just talking to a woman today who said, Heather, I've gone to every single professional I could possibly think of. I read every single book. So this is what I love about what, Sue was talking about coaching, because it's not that we don't know what we need to do. It's how the brain functions. It's human behavior, and we need to get outside of this. So when it comes to parenting and women, we know what we want, but are we giving ourselves permission to pull that out, right? Are we giving ourselves permission to not parent our children the way that we were parented, and to not parent from our old wounds that we can't see? It's like someone having a Sharpie and drawing dots all over your face. Well, you won't see it unless you look in the mirror. And if your child is your mirror and, you're like, don't talk to me like that, don't disrespect me, blah, blah, blah. Well, where inside of yourself are you disrespecting yourself? So when I'm working with a woman, and I say women, I work with, families as well. But, and she comes to me, she goes, Heather, I'm so ambitious. And, I've tried the stay-at-home mom thing, and I still want to build this business, and I still want to do this. And I'm like, you can have your cake and eat it too, but it's not going to look like the fallacy that you have in your mind. And we need to pull back a little bit and go, how do I want to feel in my life? And when you attach feeling to everything and going, this doesn't feel good, it's out of alignment. So we need to get clear on, how do we want to feel in our relationship with our children? And so part of it is the mindset that we've carried from, like, I don't know, generations and generations and generations ago, of children do not have a voice, they should not be seen, and they should not be heard. So when you're treating your child like that in modern day culture, when your child is like, I do have a right to have a voice, I am going to speak up for myself. So mom, it doesn't make sense that you're yelling at me to clean your room. Look, at your room's a pigsty. Why are you yelling at me to do something that you're not willing to do yourself? Mom, why are you so insistent that I get A++ in school when I just want to, I want to join the circus? Why do you care if I want to dye my hair purple? And I'm using extremes.
Sure.
We have to analyze, why are we so persistent on these things? And I'm such a huge advocate for mindfulness and self-awareness, because I was that ambitious woman. And then 3 years ago, everyone teaches you hustle, hustle, hustle. And it literally almost killed me, to the point where my children no longer would have had a mom. Like, I was in the hospital, stage 4 cancer. It was ridiculous. So there is a way where we can
evolve how we show up as women and go, no, not right now. That's not in alignment. This isn't going to work. I'm not going to cook and clean and wipe everybody's ass. We need to put some systems, strategies in place so that you can become an independent person, whether that's your child or your employee or your colleague. We don't, just because we're good at it doesn't mean we need to do it for everybody else. And the more we do that and we over nurture, we're forgetting how to feed our souls. And when we're not feeding our souls, we're kind of missing the point on being a human being. And that goes beyond my role as a mother.
Wow.
So hopefully that was my tangent, but yeah.
No, I mean, that's amazing. So Susan, Heather just said something that makes me want to dive into something you said about no being the new yes, right? Mm-hmm. So how, I mean, this seems really connected to basically what Heather's getting at. Talk to me about what this means.
Okay. Well, first of all, Heather, I haven't read it, but I just met a little sidebar, Claire. There's a book that just came out in the States by a gentleman named Ben Sasse, Sasse, mm-hmm. and it's called The Vanishing American Adult. Oh. And you're smiling, but I wish I could tell you some of these millennials. And by the way, I love them. The ones that are with it and going forward and really, go-getters, they're fabulous. But the ones that can't find their way out of a paper bag because mother and father have done everything, it is shameful. And I really worry about the leadership. I don't know what your countries are like. I'm only going to comment on mine. We are raising a bunch of kids who the parents have written the college papers for them. They've done their high school homework. Nobody says no anymore. No, you can't do it. Now, I understand what you were just saying, Heather, that the idea of don't do as I do as I say, that never works, okay? But, creating boundaries for our children and not making everything so easy, and not everybody has to win a soccer, award, and not everybody is getting an A, and not everybody can go to Harvard. It's just not realistic. And so when it doesn't happen, they are depressed, they're anxious. And I mean, it's so when it comes to saying no, and, I know I sound a little fierce and I don't mean to, but it's the same thing, people, and I have learned this, and I'm obviously older than you guys. You want to be chairing this and volunteering for this, running your business, taking care of your home. It's not realistic. And so coming into a meeting 20 minutes late in a volunteer activity, it's not attractive to me. It shows me that you're not organized, because you've taken on too much. So that's what I mean by no is the new yes. And that's the same thing in a company. You can't be at 3 meetings at one time. So how do you communicate that to your superiors or your team, or don't make those kinds of requests on people? But I think you guys know what I'm talking about, or somebody will say, listen, and darn well, it's just so that she can go and get her nails done. Oh, listen, I'm not going to be able to pick Tommy up. Can you take him home? And all of a sudden, you're the one that's chauffeuring the kids around all the time when you have things. Am I making sense? Lise, you're looking at me like I'm a little fierce. But I think, this business of becoming a society of people pleasers, in essence, what it does is just the opposite, because you end up disappointing people, right? You say that you're going to do. My big thing, my mantra, my whole life is say what you mean and mean what you say. If I say to you, Heather, after I've run into you, let's have lunch next week, or let's get together for coffee, you're going to hear from me. I mean, and if I can't do it, I'm not going to say it. Or if you say to me, can you do it in the next couple of weeks? I might say, no, I have any free time probably till the first week in August. But, so that carries into this whole idea of talking about authenticity and being genuine. It's really not that hard, but how many people do we really know that are genuine and authentic? And part of that is being able to put boundaries with our children, with our teams, with ourselves, and just being able to say, I can't do it all. Or, I need tonight to just stay home and, I need a half hour to myself with just complete silence so I can think for a moment. I don't know if I'm always answering your question, but
yeah,
we have to learn to say no. And the big thing is we have to learn to say no to our children. And I'm talking about things like, When your child, and this has happened to me, tells me to go, you know what, myself, this is many years ago, we have a fabulous relationship now. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess you won't be going out to the party tonight. What do you mean? No one's going to talk to me like that.
Yeah.
I've raised, and I'm, believe me, if you could have heard me while she was growing up, I would have never told you how great she was. You know, not like all my other friends whose kids are perfect, but, you know, saying no, and really, and it's hard, Heather, it's hard to say no. It's really hard. It's much easier to say yes and let them whine and get their own way. And it's the same thing with people in an organization, setting those boundaries. So there's lots in that chapter about different ways of saying no. And again, it's not so much about children, but you know, sometimes employees act, you know, they have the same tendencies to do things that children do. So yeah, but
so Lise,
superwoman. Yeah, go ahead.
Lise, talk to me about boundaries in business.
Ooh, hard, particularly when you start working for yourself.
Right.
And yeah, in the first 12 months, and when I quit my job and started doing my own thing, I had just got engaged as well. So my now husband. So we moved in together. So I was definitely in the hustle stage where I was literally working as long as I could, basically, because I was at home. And I've definitely found that since I've started working from home, I'm more inclined to work longer hours than in my, you know, my normal job, mainly because I'm doing stuff that I'm passionate about, but also because I'm very much a yes person, just exactly as what, you know, what Susan was talking about. I'm very much someone that's always trying to help. So if a client's reaching out to me, or, you know, email's the worst, and you can access your email on your phone.
Yeah.
I've really struggled in that first 12 months. And my husband just basically had a conversation with me one day and said, like, Lise, you can't be available 24/7. And it was tricky because I'm on this side of the world. It's finding a balance. Most of my clients are North American or European. So the time zone thing is also another thing. So it's working out what works best for you first, then it filters down everywhere else. So for me now, I'm up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. I don't have children. I'll say that right now. We're planning for a child, but we're childless at the moment. So I'm up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, where I get to do an hour and a half of just me time, where that, you know, no client work, nothing, not in front of the computer, not on my phone, just sort of nothing. And then I work from 8:30 till sort of 2:30, and that's it. Outside of that, my phone goes on airplane mode, my laptop is shut. But it took me a while to get to that point, because I felt guilty that I wasn't constantly looking at my phone and answering emails, because that's exactly what I was doing. But it also filtered through into other areas of my life, like, you know, friends and family. Because I work from home, they have this thing that they think that I'm just flexible and
right.
just come out for lunch, or my sister, hopefully she doesn't watch this, but she was a classic. She's got three kids under the age of 6. So she would be just like, Lise, can you come look after the kids? And I would help as much as I could, but I'm still, you know, just because I'm working from home doesn't mean that I have the flexibility or the ability to just drop everything at the drop of a hat. So it's figuring out and communicating and explaining to people exactly what it is that you're doing and when you're available. And it's just, you have to be the one that drives it, though. Like, you've got to set those boundaries and then stick to them, because if you don't, people just continue to take advantage of you. You know, and like I said, in that first 12 months, I definitely had clients messaging me at 8-9 o'clock at night.
Right.
And I was responding. So they had that expectation that was there. So by taking a step back and just going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And if, you know, and the silly thing was, once I said it, you know, the clients were fine. they wouldn't, well, they might, they wouldn't answer a client's, message or email at 9 o'clock at night. So as soon as you put in those boundaries for yourself, it just made things a lot easier. There are still times where I fall back into bad habits. So I'm, massively, this thing is, as much as it's amazing, I generally leave it in the bedroom from 6 o'clock onwards, so that I'm not touching it when I'm sort of sitting in the lounge, because that's my worst thing, is having it sitting beside me while I'm watching TV and just looking at the notifications.
Right.
It's like the worst thing you can have. So it's just, for me, I'm definitely an out of sight, out of mind. So if I can't see it, that's my best approach, is to just put it somewhere where I can't see it, because nothing is going to fall apart if I don't deal with it there and then. It's understanding that it's okay. Like in a normal job, like when you're working in a normal job, there are not those expectations. It's particularly down this side of the world. There is not that expectation that you need to be answering an email at 9 o'clock at night.
Right.
So So I'm hoping I'm answering your question as well.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing, ladies? And the other thing is, especially as entrepreneurs, I mean, what's wrong? We're busy. And I train my clients now by, and I have to actually work at it, not to be that internet ninja that I want to be sometimes. And I just say, hey, you know what? I'm busy. And even if I'm not busy, sometimes it's a good thing for people to think that you're busy. Like when I'm on the golf course for 4 or 5 hours, and they're just not going to hear from me. So let them think I'm busy. I am busy fooling around.
So Susan, tell me a little bit more about that, because your books look at sort of how we can best communicate. So how can we best communicate those boundaries?
Well, it's interesting. Again, I always have a little story, but they just had a thing on 60 Minutes here in this country, and you know what that is, Claire, that CBS 60 Minutes magazine show. And they actually were interviewing a guy from Google, and he's basically saying that we, like, every time, like, they are training us to constantly be checking our phone. It's almost like, what did I get? What's new? Who called me? Am I important? Did I get a text? And so we have to ask me the question again. So I give you a straightforward answer.
So your books look at how we can best communicate, right? So I'm wondering, how can we, when we think about boundaries, how can we start to really try to communicate those boundaries?
Well, here's another thing. Okay. For instance, I'm working with someone now, and she wants to do everything so there are different boundaries, and some of them are, I'm just not going to have an in-depth conversation with you on an email. I'm just not going to. A, I might sound snarky or impatient, which I don't mean to be, because I will be very factual. But if you hear me on the telephone, knowing that I really want to help you. So when you say boundaries, it's not just boundaries of, shutting the phone off at 5 o'clock or not looking at it after you get into your bed. But it's also communicating that there are different modes of communication depending upon different situations. Are you going to have, are you going to have a serious discussion with your spouse about a decision that you have to make, going back and forth on texting and email? I don't think so. And sometimes the voice is just a better thing to hear. But when you talk about boundaries with communication, I think we have to, and by the way, the first time I talk to a client or I meet a client, I will say to them, when it comes to communication, what is your preferred method? Because we have baby boomers who are older. We have millennials who could just text. They could text their papers on a text, their term papers. But so what is your preferred mode of communication? Okay, well, mine is, I'm fine with all that, except there are going to be times that I just need to talk to you. But again, even that, we have to email somebody to say, hi, Claire, can you talk to me at 4 o'clock? No, I'm not talking about this meeting. I'm talking about, can I have a check call with you at 4 o'clock? It's because what is a priority and what is emergent? So if someone, Lise, says, oh, listen, so my calendar is good for August 1st. All right, well, it's June 29th. Do you think you have to answer them? But our tendency one of the things is we may want to get it off our desk or, you know, off of our email. But the other one is it doesn't allow us to accomplish the things that are really important when we constantly get distracted.
Right.
So it's just, like I say, maybe you may have that conversation with your client so that they know, and then you really just have to work on yourself and just understand that these machines they're so helpful in so many ways, but they are such a distraction. One of the rudest things that I find is people sitting in a meeting, and you know, and I know it happens more in our corporate world over here because they're always having people, this one needs that, and this department and finance, and that, but you actually see people, and so they're not, and we talk about this too, right, as coaches, they're not fully present.
Mm-hmm.
So how are they really going to absorb what is in that moment that we're trying to accomplish? It's very challenging. It's very challenging. All this theory has really become challenging. I'm not saying I can live without it. I'm saying this is why I love the human touch. This is why I want people to, I don't want to lose that humanness that we all have somewhere, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, it's one thing, texting is a great tool when you're saying I'm running 5 minutes late. You don't have to call somebody and say that with that kind of technology today. But again, you're having an argument, you have a concern, or maybe even it's a huge display of affection. That might be time for a phone call. But so it's just habits. It's just habits. I mean, even picking up your phone constantly and did this one call? Did that one? Who texted me? You know, checking if you got an email back from that person you're waiting for. I like now to leave my phone alone for an hour, and then when I look at it, oh, some things have actually really happened.
Some things have happened. So, Heather, I have a question for you, and I know, Susan, you may have to drop off in a minute, so feel free to run out. I know you have a meeting coming up. But Heather, I want to, you know, Susan talked about something, you know, she said how when I'm fooling around on the golf course, that is, you know, important. I'm busy during that time, right? And I know that, Heather, you care a lot about play, right? Which is, I think, kind of a funny word, or a lot of business people, we think it's a funny word, right? Why should we care about this concept of play? Can you sort of tell me why you think it's important?
Yeah. And I don't really use the play a lot, but I think, you know, we're talking about disconnect here. That's really what we're talking about. We're so connected to something that is superficial, which is artificial conversations with individuals, you know, looking on things with filters and things like that. So, I mean, if we as adults are doing this, imagine what the next generation feels like, our children, right? Our grandchildren below that. You know, when a 2-year-old knows how to run an iPad, like, this is an issue. So we have to realize the connection between our actions and the consequence, positive and negative, right? So if you're out on the golf course golfing for 4 hours, if you go to the gym, if you hang out with a friend at a coffee shop that you don't have time for, right? But you've put this on your calendar and you've made it a priority. And then after that, you're like, I feel really good. You're excited, right? The energy that you've infused in your body is giving you this generating this excitement. And then you go home and you bang things out for your business, or like you make a really good dinner for your family, or you have a more positive conversation with your family. That is exactly what you should be doing. This is not, we've bought into an illusion, a cultural illusion of, you know, work harder, play harder. I went to a talk last night, a local talk. 90% of the entrepreneurs were like in their 20s. And they all ended with the same quote and message: work hard until you kill yourself. I'm not kidding. It was like hustle, hustle, hustle. Their business names were push, hustle, do all these things. And me and my friend are sitting next to each other, and she's, you know, in the wellness field like me, and we're laughing, and we're like, we need to talk to them after. I'm like, give them 5-10 years and they'll be coming to us because they'll be in renal failure and like going, help, I'm like 500 pounds overweight and I'm dying and I'm not sleeping at night. I'm like, wait till you have a family to take care of and bills to pay. How do we balance it all? I think balance is bullshit. It's all about alignment. I might feel balanced for 30 seconds of the day, but we have to, again, look back and go, what do I want? Not what do my children want me to be? What does my husband want me to be? What do my colleagues, clients, team want me to be? What exactly do I want in my life? And when you design that, I get my clients to write out their story. I call it the courageous rewrite. When you rewrite your story, I wake up feeling like this. I go to bed feeling like this. My interaction with my children is like this. And you know exactly the visual of what you want. 10 minutes later, you're going to forget what that is because your brain defaults to the negative. That's why it's very easy to always find, the glass half empty scenario in anything, because that is the natural default of your brain. That's how the biology works. But when you have cultural, unconscious, sleepwalking, miserable people that you're surrounding yourself with, and children too, you ask them to do the dishes and they're like, yeah, right? You're constantly going to be challenged to implement that boundary. Creating your life by design, going, what do I want? Becoming the best version of you, it takes conscious effort. Is it easy? No. But when you say, I take the easy route, that's not easy because you're going to be paying for it in the long run. So you have to get clear on what it is that you want in your life and read your freaking story over and over again. Write it down somewhere. Read it before you go to bed. Read it when you wake up. And yeah, is there going to be lots of play in there? There is, because I used to have a belief that work, right? Work, children. And constantly on a daily basis, I observe it now, how people go, oh, that must be nice. I remember when, the only vacation I ever got from my children was that one trip I took to the hospital. And I go, well, great. It took you having to be admitted into the hospital to get one night to yourself. Like if that worked for you, great. But why are we judging other people for being happy, healthy, content, and balanced? I think it's such baloney because that's a reflection of their own insecurity and jealousy. But we're all sitting here going, I don't got it together, right? I have some tools in my toolbox and I'm just committed to living my best life in all aspects, and every day is a journey. So when you look at people and go, I'm liking that, right? Like, how did they get there? What are they doing? That works for me. That doesn't work for me. It's just about who am I and becoming that version of you. And when you do that, your children are watching what it means to be independent, happy. Do you want your child to be like the brightest in the world and all these crazy things? Essentially, what I hear is, I want my child to be independent, happy, and healthy. And how do we teach them that? Well, you definitely don't learn that in a math textbook or a science class. They're observing you and they're observing the world. So when you create that culture in your home, everything shifts. Absolutely everything. And they're watching you. So when you tell them, live your dreams, and they're like, but mom, you're not doing that. Oops. You got to practice what you preach because it's hard. And when you do that, you can say, oh yeah. And you can tell them the stories about how difficult it was to push through that resistance when really it's so much easier just to lie in bed all day. Not for me, but for some people.
So thank you guys so much for this. I really, really appreciate this chat today. I'm wondering if we could just sort of hear what you each are really working on now and where people could find out more about you. Maybe we'll start with you, Susan.
Yes. So right now I am working actually with a very large heavy machinery company. I'm working with them for the next year on coaching their not only their women, but the executives to whom these women report, working on things like collaboration and communication, and obviously the ability to elevate these women to a higher level within the organization and empowering them and instilling the confidence that they need to go beyond where they are. That coupled with, I do a great deal of work with solopreneurs, people who are looking to, and I actually have an ebook on my website at susanascher.com on solopreneurship. Dude, seriously, what does it mean to be a solopreneur? So with all kinds of tips and tricks and things like that for people. And then finally, I work a great deal coaching any level executive within within an organization who's looking to leave their organization, and maybe they've been there for 10 or 20 years or 5 years and they don't know what's changed in the marketplace. So really always working with people on advancing their careers, and that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment.
Awesome. And Lise, what are you really up to these days?
I'm just about to finish off a book that I'm writing at the moment and start writing a next one. And I'm also coaching budding authors into getting their first book self-published. So that's a 90-day program that I do. So you can find me at hustleandgroove.com.
Awesome. And Heather, what about you?
I'm all about helping women who are particularly mothers understand their children on a deeper level and creating the life that they love. So you can check me out on my podcast, Mom is in Control, because if it's Mom's in Control, apparently it's a naughty URL to go to. So Mom is in Control podcast. Check it out on iTunes. Check out my website, heatherchauvin.com. I have a lot of freebies on there, and yeah, I do a time freedom challenge, just helping people get in alignment. I'm all about giving them the tools. It's about strategic daily action steps. So yeah, you could check me out there and follow me and see what I'm up to. But more importantly, go after what you want, because it's not going to come to you.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for this. Really, really appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.